Hello and welcome to another wonderful edition of Hockey on 216, proudly driven by Hyundai. As always, joined in studio, Bridget Key. Wonderful to have you back, Bridget, after I know what's been an incredibly busy for you and the production team at SuperSport School's Easter weekend. It's been a busy weekend for you. And Kristen, Moodles, always good to have you. A little bit of time off this weekend, but a family time.
Yeah, thanks,
Your teams
Kelvin.
weren't playing.
Nice to take a break from hockey for a bit, and we're on school holiday at the moment, so it's been nice to have family around.
Well, hopefully you were watching a lot of hockey. I know that you were, because we've been discussing about all the games. So your kids were definitely sharing you with the SuperSport Schools app and Channel 216. So thank you for that, and always good. On the subject of all of that hockey, we have a wonderful partner in takealot.com at SuperSport Schools. And for those of you who by now have lost your gum guard, left your shin pads at an Easter festival, need some new grips, really get down to this beautifully relaunched store, hockey store, specific store that Takealot have recently relaunched. They have a 20% discount on all hockey equipment. So as a discount code, Hockey20 gives you a 20% immediate discount, and you get in line to stand a chance to win a 10,000 Rand hamper from the sports section at Takealot. And specifically from Osaka as well, they have another one, which is Osaka 20 for anything from the Osaka range, again, through gum guards, shin pads, grips, whatever it might be. And also stand in line not only to get a 20% discount, but to stand in line to get a 20,000 Rand Osaka hamper as well. So that's running until the end of the month at takealot.com. So for those of you who are short a little bit of hockey gear or looking to stock up for the coming season, now's a good chance to get ahead of it, and your parents will love you with that 20% discount. Also at Takealot is our old school jerseys. And I know Kristen and Bridget, you guys were around. It's just so wonderful to see so many of these old school jerseys now in the crowds. They haven't covered all the schools. So for those of you whose schools aren't currently covered, get in touch with Old School. They'll be more than happy to oblige. And for those of you who are looking to buy 1, 2, 3, 4, I saw some people buying up to 6 jerseys at the St. John's Festival over the weekend at a time. Again, on Takealot in the Old School section, there's some wonderful jerseys available there, and some good shopping to be done for everyone.
I saw the whole of Cares was in red, so they're going wild there.
Perfect for the winter and some of the derbies that are coming up. Eh?
Absolutely. No, listen, it's just wonderful that such a great brand is involving itself with schools in this country. So just testament to everything that's going around school sport at the moment. And on that subject, what an amazing weekend. Easter weekend is, perhaps predominantly been about rugby for the last 30 or 40 years, but with the inclusion of hockey, obviously at St. Stithians, which I think now is in its 17th or 18th year, at the Kes Festival going on 20 years. At least there's 2 really good Easter festivals and some good hockey going around. Obviously the St. Stithians was boys and girls. Kes was only the boys hockey. Yeah. So Bridge, maybe starting with you. What's a couple of teams that maybe stood out, or maybe a team and a match that stood out for you at
There were some really good matches. I think it was a lovely weekend of hockey, and it's such a nice festival, the split of the girls and the boys, and it's a great vibe. I think having some untraditional sides there, so you've got the likes of Bellew College, always a good hockey side, coached really well. They played against Bethlehem Voortrekker. Bethlehem Voortrekker, a small little town. They came out, they got a 2-0 win over Bellew, and that's a lovely result for Bethlehem Voortrekker to come and play top sides. They've got, I think there's an athlete in their side that is the fastest 800-meter runner in South Africa currently in her age group. So, they've got speed on their side.
One thing that really impressed me about so much of the girls' hockey that I watched at St. Stithians was the athleticism that was out there. We're really starting to see the athletes come to the fore, aren't we?
Absolutely. I think that's, particularly if you're going into likes of the traditional Afrikaans schools that you find are very athletics focused. We've spoken about it heavily, how they have their preseason athletics and everything, and that really plays into the tournament style hockey, because you're playing a lot of games, so you need that endurance, that sustainability that comes into play.
So important.
We spoke a little bit about that, having watched the St. Mary's tournament and some of the girls' hockey up until now, that they've even changed the way they play a little bit. We're seeing a lot more teams play on the counter-attack, end-to-end stuff, whereas before the game was sort of very structured and very
a bit more static.
Yeah, a little bit more static. But you can see now that athleticism is becoming a key component in the girls' teams.
Well, that's that Baloo game. That's what I think allowed them that win. You know, so a great result for them.
And Kristen, in some of the boys' hockey over the weekend, what stood out for you? A particular game, a couple of teams that really stood out?
If we start a little bit about from the KES Festival, I think Maritzburg College, Kelvin, you'll be happy to know. They won all 5 of their games. Particular result there that stood out for me is they beat Parktown 6-0, which for me is that's a big win because that Parktown team we've spoken about are difficult to play against. That was a good result.
I mean, I think that's probably the statement win of the season for Mark Saunders and his boys. They'll be very, very pleased with it because that's a good Parktown team.
Yes.
We've seen Parktown perform really well so far this season. And I mean, for me, obviously watching the Maritzburg College boys is always something special. There are a couple of players that stood out there for me. The captain Uyanda Dlamini in his 3rd season is really coming into his own. He's just such an important part of that whole team, and he continues to deliver. And then young Andile Lembete, I mean, his brother's a bit of a favourite of ours, both at a national team level and obviously has a rich history at Maritzburg College. But the little general, as they're starting to talk about him about, is really starting to come through and show that those hockey genes in the Lembete families down in Eston really run very deep.
And leadership.
Yes,
I think leadership. He's such a good leader on the field.
I had the privilege of coaching Peebo, the general, as he was known, and you knew what you were going to get out of Peebo. He could control the game, and I think that's where the general comes from, and obviously had an influence on his younger brother. But on the Maritzburg College team, Kelvin, I spoke in the very first segment about they'll need to find some consistency under a new coach.
Yes.
And they did start slowly.
Absolutely.
But certainly now starting to get a grip on things and very consistent through the SKES Festival.
I'm really looking forward. I think the DHS, they're going to have another game. They obviously had that 2-2 draw earlier, and the Northwood game, I think, are going to be big games in the KZN season as they come. Any other teams that really impressed you at the KES Festival?
So KES and Northwood again were really good. I think they played out to a 1-1 draw, which
probably the match of the festival, probably the most competitive, I thought.
Yeah, KES with a number of good individuals who are certainly responding to Sharman's style of coaching. And that would have been another epic matchup between Sharman Naidu and Justin Collins. Know each other very well. They work together for South African schools hockey as well. So, epic clash.
Yeah, and young Finn Campbell, they're really doing well. I think he's really becoming, again, one of the really important players in that KES lineup. I see he's made the Southern's under-21 team, so he'll be playing in the under-21 tournament with some of the bigger boys. He's a big kid himself.
Yes. Yeah.
So it'll be good to see how he runs out in under-21 hockey next weekend.
We also need a Jeppe won all 5 of their games. They've been a team we've been calling from the start. So to see Sitanya and his charges, a very good festival for them as well.
Just a good season. I mean, they really are putting in what looks like a very good season. Probably going next, and if we go to that Saints things, if we start to look at what's coming down the line in Gauteng hockey, Jeppe, St. Stithians, KES fighting out for Aitken is really going to be quite interesting to watch later on in the season.
Yeah, that's going to be. I think Aitken, the tournament format over 3 days takes a lot out of teams, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that many games in a short space of time, and having a number of must-win games.
Absolutely. And that St. Stithians team, I think, are a little bit different to the team maybe that Jeppe got really early up. We spoke about that game last week again, coming in that second week. Some really, Aidan Blatch, I thought had it just probably for me was the player of the festival at St. Stithians. He really came into his own. It was magnificent. Jason Joyner really impressed me at the back. For St. Stithians as well, young grade 10 boy. Yeah, and for a youngster, I think he's grade 10, grade 11, so he's back for a while to come. Really impressive. Unfortunately for them, obviously losing Thomas Robinson to a knee injury, their captain. They did so well to come through this tournament without him, didn't they?
Yeah, and again, we spoke about Miguel de Grassa's style of coaching there, watching their game against Hilton. I think that Saints side, you're never going to put them to bed. So if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to play the 60 minutes of hockey, and that was an end-to-end game against Hilton. And I think that Saints are going to cause some upsets in the Aiken-Bowden.
Absolutely.
I'm putting my money on Kes Saints potential Aiken final.
Well, there we go. We're going to put that down.
I know, it's a big call.
Bridget says Kes versus Saints. Bridget, and some of those other matches that you watched up and the matchups that you came across and teams that you saw.
I think a nice one was we saw DSG for the first time. They didn't get to play at St Mary's Hockey Fest, so they were here up in Joburg, and they're currently touring in Holland. But they have two sisters in their side, the Holdener sisters. Abigail captaining the side. She is formidable. She's an athlete. She flicks. She just really commands the troops really well. There's a lot of hockey pedigree in that DSG side. You've got Apple, who also plays beautifully. You know, there's some really good hockey.
There's some really good hockey in that DSG side, and you know, Joanne will be very pleased with their performances over this weekend, as you say, and coming back now off a tour internationally, they'll certainly be a force for the rest of the season. But disappointing that we don't see them at the St Mary's. I know there's a little bit of a story there. Hopefully, it's something that can be said because they're too good a team not to be at St Mary's Festival.
Absolutely. No, I think they are disappointed that they don't come up for it. They are touring, as I say now, so they do have that. So I think you're going to see their season just escalating, and they already are, trumping a lot of other teams into that bid for the top 10 and that invite. So they're going to just keep growing that space. Yeah.
Talking about the sisters, I wonder if the Holdener sisters are having also a bit of a goal scoring competition, like we heard last week. The Schultz sisters at Epworth are having a bit of a ding-dong to see who's their top scorer. For those of you who are interested in that story, Catherine actually came back at her little sister Anna, and they now level pegging after the St Stithians tournament. So I think we might just keep an eye on that sisterly battle and see who comes out at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Scoring the most goals. There's the Kelly sisters, or twins, I think, at St Anne's as well.
Yes.
Bridget. So it'd be interesting to hear if there's any other sisters out there that we might not be aware of. And
the Thompson sisters also, I can't remember where they're from, but same thing. So maybe, put it out to everyone that if there are more sisters out there playing and they want to get involved in this battle of the scores, it would be quite fun. Get in touch with us.
I think you guys are on dangerous ground.
I know. I think it's
a few family feuds. Absolutely.
I think it's going to be worth it.
It's definitely going to be interesting. And I think as the season goes, we'll certainly be keep catching up with Darren Gallagher there and just seeing how that Schultz sister contest is going and who's going to end up as the top scorer for Epworth. Another team for most of the tournament. We spoke to them obviously in the tournament last week that started really well at St Stithians, and Darren Gallagher spoke to us about playing full-length hockey and how tough that is. And what we actually saw in his squad was the deeper they went into the tournament, they did start to run out of a bit of legs, and perhaps the one or two results on the last day went against them, and very much just that tournament hockey is hard hockey when it's full fields and full game time.
Yeah. I mean, I think now, Kelvin, what we're seeing, we are sort of a month into the season. Some of these teams have played between 10 and 15 games already. And we've spoken a lot about strength and conditioning on the show.
Absolutely.
And it's starting to play out for me because I can see that there were some inconsistent performances this week. A team like Hilton will be disappointed
very disappointed
with their results at
But Kristen, as they say, touring is tough. Going on tour is a lot. And after this break, we're going to just talk a bit more about that touring experience and just how hard that can be. Yes. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to another wonderful segment. Bridget's had to leave us, a little bit of a production emergency. That's what happens when you're responsible for 60,000 matches around the country being produced on SuperSport School. So she's just popped out of the studio. But Kristen, we were just been talking about the St Stithians Festival, the Kes Festival, just two, wonderful Easter festivals, all brought to you by Standard Bank. The one thing I really want to call out, and you know me on the show, I do call it out a lot, is just the food and beverage offerings. Kes was wonderful, but really St Stithians, just kudos to that St Stithians team. Warren Tanner Ellis, Barbara Beaucamp, Alistair Stewart. That hospitality marquee was just the most incredible offering, wasn't it, for parents, for supporters, and for people? I mean, I'm not sure I've seen anything like that in the world of hockey.
No, absolutely. I mean, it took me a bit by surprise when I got there. It said, first come, first serve, enter. There was no charge to enter that hospitality area. incredible vibe in there.
Absolutely.
Lots of parents. And I think important to note that they got it right. And when you consider how many sports codes they had at the St. Stithians Sports Festival, incredible spectacle.
No, it was just wonderful. And as you say, to allow free entrance into a hospitality venue like that, and the catering and the food and the beverage, which for me is such an important part of the whole school sports experience, not only for the kids, but for the parents, for grandparents, for the fans there. It was just unbelievable.
No, and Kelvin, we spoke about it a bit when we were at St. Stithians last week about how this has become a family event because it's Easter weekend.
Absolutely.
People travel with their kids, kids involved in sport. And so for them to have a holiday while watching their kids play, have the good food, have this great experience.
Well, and as you say about what was so wonderful about it is people spend a lot of time there, and that ability to sit down and have a wonderful breakfast, lunch, even into dinner, there were just all these options. Grill House doing steak rolls and wors rolls that were just to die for, incredible. Labaquera were there with the most unbelievable vegetable and seafood paellas and various things. And then they had fornos with like every baked good you could possibly think about. Easter eggs about that size, sort of handmade Easter rabbits it was absolutely incredible and just so important. And I was chatting to people on the weekend saying, I've been to the Olympic hockey, I've been to World Cups, I've been to international hockey in most parts of the world. I'm willing to say right here on the show that is the best food and hospitality offering in the world of hockey. There is no better.
I can't see that at any level it can be better than that. Just the whole experience. Kelvin, we talk about coming in, how you're greeted by some St. Stithians boys at the entrance, their prep school boys, and it felt, like every guest was welcome. And I think that's what they were going for, and they certainly achieved that.
Absolutely. And it just adds to this whole thing. But we've been talking about touring and the importance of it. And we've got a little insert coming up where we stuck in a little camera crew that toured with the Northwood boys team that came up to the Cares Festival in their Hyundai buses. And hopefully, we'll give people a little bit of an experience of what it's like touring with a team. But from an educator's perspective, tell me about touring and the importance of it for school children.
I think all tours need to have a couple of elements to them. The important part of a tour is that collegiality that you grow as a team. It's not often in the busyness of schools week to week that coaches get to spend that kind of time with their team. The team gets to spend time with each other. It's where friendships are made. If you think back to your school days, Kelvin.
Absolutely.
And, I'm sure you'll tell us where you went to school for those who haven't seen any of the other shows.
I'll keep the most of the college thing under wraps.
But you think back to your
Absolutely.
mates now. Those are the guys who you sat next to on a bus, on
Absolutely.
a long bus trip. And then the other element of tours for me is that it's focused. So hockey trip, focus on hockey, and for 5 days or 6 days or whatever the length of the tour is, that's your singular focus. And I think what a lot of schools have done well, and I heard at St. Stithians, the Epworth girls and the Hilton boys went and played paddle on one of the days. That's incredible for forming these friendships and bonds. And it's not only about the sport, it's also about getting out, seeing other parts of the place,
As you say that, there's children that probably travel to Johannesburg this week. There'll be those going to Port Elizabeth and to Cape Town or to Pulham next week that have never been to those parts of the world.
Absolutely.
And just this opportunity to travel, see hockey in different environments, play under different conditions. It's just such an important part of education. A lot of kids who aren't perhaps boarding kids, suddenly responsible for packing their bags, doing all the things that maybe mom and dad do.
We certainly know who the boarders are and who the ones who aren't.
I'm sure that's something that as an educator you're very well aware of. And I think it's just one of the really special things about not only hockey in South African schools, but just all the sport that we part is this wonderful opportunity to tour around the country and a lot of our teams even touring internationally at the moment from a hockey perspective.
Having grown up in the Eastern Cape and the beach was just part of what we did, we quickly forget that there's some kids here who have never been to the beach.
Absolutely.
These
that becomes
tours
part
give
of,
them an
part
opportunity
of the tour.
to do that.
Speaking about the beach, really thankful to Justin Collins and the Northwood first team boys who allowed us to have a camera, from leaving Northwood, right, or pretty much on the beach in Durban, traveling up to the Cares Easter Festival. We're going to go to a little snippet here where we see a little bit about their bus trip up, what they experienced and their short tour on these wonderful, wonderful Hyundai buses.
Hockey's got a very rich tradition at Northwood. I was very fortunate enough in 2016, I was working in the UK in the hockey environment that side, and I was approached by Northwood to come and be director of hockey. Durban North, where we're based, is a very hockey-rich community. You know, we've developed that to a point now under the new director of hockey, Justin Collins. He's added a huge dimension to what we do. And we're really running with we call it the culture of Japan. Leave yourself, your environment, everyone else around you better than what you found it. And the matric group of 2018 was very instrumental in this room that we currently sat in developing the culture of Japan. The Japanese football team left handwritten notes with gift baskets and thank you notes for the Russian stadium organizers, cleaners. The Japanese fans helped clean the stadium, and the 2018 matric group came to me and said, "Sir, this is who we need to be." And it was amazing for me, having been at the school for 2 years by that point, to really see that the impact of becoming a better human that was the core of our hockey program.
So obviously this hockey room is a very special place to us. Northwood Legacy, we want to live that through our playing capacity, and that's the value inside the shirt. And I think that's something I'm trying to work hard with the boys, is understanding the legacy left behind us. This room here that we're in at the moment, it's a tribute to all the old boys that have passed through these doors. It's about remembering those that have played in the jersey before us, and also trying to create a legacy for those that are going to play in it in the future. So this is our special place. This is where we live. This is where we do everything from our video to team talks, to obviously having chats on individual capacity, to better players in a special place. We do have the motto Japan that we work with here. For us, Japan means that we want to leave a place in a better place than we found it. That's not just from smiling and greeting people, but that's also from our environment and being nice to people on a daily basis. And I think that's important towards our legacy and what we're trying to achieve.
And you'll see up in our hockey room, there's actually a Japanese memorabilia that reminds us of who we are and the path that we walk to honor those that have walked before us.
So for us as hockey at Northwood, it's a massive part of it. And I think that's the reason that we're going to Friday Night Lights. Rugby is orientated around Saturdays, generally around South Africa. So we're trying to make a special place for hockey on a Friday night. And just with the depth of people coming to our school, it just shows that hockey's in a really good space at Northwood. We're trying to make sure that we give the boys as much exposure as possible and be process driven, not results driven, but at the same time being competitive with everything that we do.
We're pretty happy with how it's going overall as a program. We're still putting out incredibly healthy numbers from under 14A to around the F zone. 16 goes down past the G zone. We go into a social where the boys get to choose their own team names. If we put a letter to that, it probably goes to a J. And at the senior level, we're putting out 6. So a very, very healthy program.
My first team this year, we're very fortunate that we've got some really strong under-16s playing in our setup. The likes of Luke Boyle, Keegan Reeves, Caleb Phipson and Ryan Herselman are coming on tour. Really exciting prospect for South African hockey, those boys. And we're trying to find that balance correctly. But for us, we're in a building phase. Under-16s are knocking on the door at a rapid rate, but the rest of the boys are made up of matrics. So they've got a wealth of knowledge. They've done well in the previous years. So from our first team perspective, I think we're heading the right direction. And we've got the buy-in, and our team culture is in a really good place at the moment. We're very fortunate to have some really good mental conditioning coaches on board. Our strength and conditioning coaches, they really expose our boys to the next level of agility. And training with our pods and having pods on us all the time, it really pushes our game, and we obviously extend that to the next level. And we can see that we're measuring our training capacity to where we are in terms of our match intensity and trying to mirror those as closely as possible, and we're getting pretty close. So hopefully there's still good things to come, and we put plans in place to keep growing as a hockey department.
It's a young, talented, exciting group that might be exposed at certain key moments if that experience doesn't shine through. But the talent of these individuals and the younger boys do play above their age, and they've got some really talented, really strong leadership within the matric group. Captain Carl White is arguably one of the best schoolboy captains I've seen. He heads up our cricket program. He's done that from his grade 11 year already, and he really is the right man for the job, surrounded by his leadership group. I really do feel that the boys we're going into cares confident. We'll be having higher hopes and expectations for their results, but I think it's about the performance ultimately, and if the boys are playing to our process, playing to our structures, and what's been given to them from head coach Justin Collins, I really do feel the boys will have a successful case.
It's a sport that I love and I've got a real passion for. I've enjoyed every single moment of my life being here. The friendships that I've made, the memories that I've created, on and off the sports field has been something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
So we're about to climb on the buses and drive through to Cairns Easter Festival. We always love going to Cairns. We are so well hosted. The people around Cairns are just, they're accommodating, they're wanting to go the extra mile. They're super well organised and obviously put plans in place. It's a highlight on our calendar. We obviously want to go back there and also fly the Northwood flag high. I think that's the most important thing, is that represent the Durban North community by playing well up at Cairns. And we've had a really good pre-season starting from the Founders Festival and obviously the other fixtures we played around that. Michael House played a really good game against us. Unfortunately, went down narrowly there. But we bounced back and, you know, we're on the right track we want to go. As I keep telling the boys as well, it's a journey. We're not there yet. We're putting stepping stones in place and we're starting small and trying to grow from step to step to obviously go bigger pictures. And this weekend's a good place to continue with that journey. And yes, you're always going to get hurdles along the way, but if we can make those minor hurdles and we keep bouncing back every time, I think we're in a good space. I'm very fortunate that we have Honda on board. They have been with us for the last 3 years. They have obviously looked after us in every capacity. We're very mindful in the society we live in that, you know, costs are a real thing. And we are very fortunate that Hyundai jumped on board and they gave us 3 stars on an annual basis. Drive one of those vehicles, I really recommend it. It's next level. And the boys are very excited to go on tours because we travel in luxury. I think that's the most important thing. And our safety is obviously fore and foremost in those areas. So we are very fortunate with that. It's a brand that has been around for a long time. We're trying to also create a relationship. So it's not about us just taking, it's us also representing them well and giving them the most exposure that we can possibly do. It's not a one-way ticket, it's basically 2 ways to basically build each other up. And you know, Hyundai is just doing that for us. They've been exceptional, the branding around the school and just trying to make the whole facility better. And it's massive credit to Hyundai.
It's been quite long bus ride. At least the weather's a bit better here than it was in Durban. It's been nice.
The trip so far has been amazing. Riding in the amazing stories, and then just the vibe in the bus has been super cool. Lots of conversations flowing in the air and some really cool music playing too.
Biggest challenge, probably adapting to the altitude. I know at Durban it's a lot easier to run around. When we went to Joburg a couple of weeks ago, it was a bit tougher on our lungs and stuff like that, so we got tired quickly. So adapting to that will probably be our toughest challenge.
One of the issues that we've found as a team recently in our recent fixtures is that often we concede a goal too early or we have a bad start. So I think one of the main things we need to focus on is having a good warm-up and taking that momentum into the first chunk of the game to make sure that we give us the best chance for the end of the game.
Especially with a long tournament, you know, you got to get used to the guys around you. A lot of team morale will come into play, especially when the game situation gets quite tough. You know, you got to rely on each other and back each other to get you out of those tough situations.
It really means so much to us as a school to have our school name associated with such prestigious environments. It's that good old saying, out of sight, out of mind. You know, if we aren't attending these festivals, you're just falling behind the other big programs that exist out there. So it's important for us as a school to be at them, and to be able to have someone like Hondo, KZN really coming to the party for us with the Starios and aligning with us as a hockey program gives us the opportunity to send these boys to these festivals and really give them the opportunities to be seen on a grander stage, to be playing against the best out of province teams. You know, the KZN circuit is a pretty tough one from a hockey perspective. There is no easy game, but then when you go out of province and you go and compete against equally like-minded, talented schools, it just gives the boys more exposure, and the opportunity to do that, we're very grateful for.
Kristen, isn't that just wonderful to see a bunch of boys from Northwood, their coach Justin Collins, just coming on a tour to Johannesburg? Looked like they had so much fun from the moment that they left Northwood, got into the serious business side of it though when they got to Kes. You know, yes, the hockey was serious, but yeah, just wonderful to see.
You know, those are moments, as we mentioned earlier, that those boys will remember forever. You know, and some boys sitting there will be standing next to each other when they get married one day or develop those relationships, you know, that'll last a lifetime. And so wonderful to see them and promoting that. And
glad that we could be on there to just have a camera. So to Justin Collins and the Northwood team, and of course to Hyundai, who made it all possible, giving them those separate bus to travel up. We really thank them. It's been another wonderful week of hockey. We're going to come back and talk about what's coming down the road this coming weekend and into next week's tournaments immediately after the break. Welcome back. Bridget, Kristen, it's you know, as much as we love all these festivals, these tournaments that take place around the country, and there's some really cool ones, as we've discussed, that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. This coming weekend, we are back into a little bit of derby. It's almost like a single weekend of derbies. Obviously, school holidays are really, it must be very difficult in the school system right now, Chris, and trying to run
yeah,
you know,
there's just no consistency.
There's just no
4-day weeks, there's public holidays.
So it's glad we're not out there trying to prep teams and things as they go. So, but look, we are going into a wonderful weekend of derby hockey. And obviously from a SuperSport school's perspective, that's the life and blood of what we do, Bridget, that us and our team, and you know, what we really love is just this camaraderie between schools and communities that get to mix. And a big part of it from a hockey perspective this year that we've launched is Friday Night Lights together with Hyundai, where we're trying to shine the light on some of these great hockey derbies that take place around the country. And, you know, the good news is for us right through until deep into August, most Friday nights, we're going to have Friday nights hockey. Sometimes we'll come from festivals. July, we'll probably come from a couple of the interprovincial tournaments. But by and large, we're going to be looking at some of the great festival hockey that's taking place. And this weekend, it looks like all roads lead to Bloemfontein. You know, not only in the rugby side, King Price Derby Series, obviously there's a massive game with number 1 and number 2, I think, in the country, Pulham and Grey College. So that's going to be huge in Bloemfontein. But perhaps more importantly is the hockey that's taking place in Bloemfontein on Thursday and Friday. So what's happening in Bloem on the hockey front this weekend?
So this weekend, Paul girls go through on Thursday. They're playing Oranje Thursday night, live on 216. And then you're finding a little bit of a switchover because Pulham are also coming. They're playing Unisi.
So you're saying Paul girls are playing?
Paul girls are coming
playing
through.
Oranje on Thursday.
On Oranje. And then Pulham are also travelling to Bloem. They are playing Unisi Thursday night. And then Friday night lights will be Oranje versus Pulham. You're looking at number 2 and number 4 taking on each other at 4 o'clock.
It's a massive game in girls hockey.
It's massive
you know,
game.
It's going to be one of those massive matchups.
Yeah.
2 really, you know, competitive outfits, 2 schools that take sport very seriously, never mind their hockey, and that's going to be quite something.
Absolutely.
So that's Friday night. Paul girls at Oranje.
Pulham.
Sorry, Pulham at Oranje.
At Oranje
on Friday night.
4 o'clock. You've got Daniela van Sale's team from Pulham. She's got a really good outfit this year. We've spoken about them heavily. They've got the striker in Radomir, who is formidable. She's an SA under-17 player. She went to Malaysia last year. You also have some of the other standouts. Swanepoel, the youngster, you know, she's also been really, really good. And they've just come off a winning streak. So they're going to be looking forward to this weekend. And on the other side, Oranje playing at home, nice for them. They're going to also want to stamp the authority down. They had a sketchy start. They've got a new coach in the system, a new system.
And when you talk about a sketchy start, they had a poor St. Mary's on their sort of their history. They had that big loss to Renish earlier in the season. So, not what we typically expect from an Oranje side. What we do expect is a big bounce back, and it's going to be quite electrifying.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Swanepoel, who is captaining that side, Prinsloo, who's captaining that side, has been really leading her team particularly well. And she is a player that I like to watch, in that she is at the back, very composed. She uses her experience, her maturity on the park. And that's something they're very good at Oranje. They like build-up hockey. So their build-up hockey plays nicely to Pulham's fast electrifying hockey. They've got strikers that run. So you're going to see a game that could swing from end to end. Equally, their PC attacks are really good. So that's something to watch out for. Both teams having a flicking system out in their cavalry, as well as they've got some big hitters, and they're going to find that they're going to be, it's going to be one of those where it could go.
Goalkeepers are going to be tested.
It could go either way.
Those goalkeepers might just play a very important part.
Yeah.
Friday night as well, on the boys' side, is obviously, we've spoken about the rugby, but it's Pulham versus Grey College. Also, two very, very good outfits this year. And the Grey College team specifically are really been impressive for us this year.
Grey College, we've spoken about them in the last couple of shows. Have really had a good start to the season, had a very good Nomads. Very organised team, good set pieces. Dalen Phillips seems to have slotted in very well in Bloemfontein and really producing the goods with that Grey College team. Pulham, they had a very good win against Affies, and we thought that Affies have been playing well. They beat Affies 3-1, 2 weekends ago. And I think it's going to be a very, very good game. I think it's going to be tough for Pulham. I think playing Grey at Grey is very difficult. And, Kelvin, you mentioned these derby fixtures. As an educator, I appreciate these derby fixtures more so than the festivals, because it seems like there's a bit more purpose. You've got the whole school around the Astro.
Yes.
The visitors, parents. There's just such a vibe, around that. The war cry is being sung, and that's a big thing in South Africa. And, there's a bit more pride and passion in those games. And there we can, often we'll see a travelling team doing particularly well because their whole school's there. They've had the focus of this weekend. So, who knows? Maybe Pulham could put it out there.
As you spoke a bit earlier about preparation, though, for all of those teams would have been tough because it's been interrupted by the Easter weekend and various other things. And obviously the Pol teams have had to travel, whether it's the Pol girls teams going up to play Unisi and Pulham. It's the Pulham team that's going up to do similarly.
Yes.
Oranje and Grey probably been at home a little bit longer, a little bit more prep time on their home turf. Both, I'm going to push you guys now. I'd like to see where you go. So maybe we'll start with you, Bridge. Pulham, Oranje, Friday night lights, proudly driven by Hyundai. Who's winning? Who's losing? What's the score?
I think it is a 2-3 result in favour of Oranje. I think Oranje are going to get 3 in.
Oranje 3 at home, 3-2 to Oranje is Bridget's call. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a big call. It's a very big call. I mean, look, I think that ties into Bridget's analysis earlier. In a high-scoring game, 5 goals in it.
Yeah.
I think you've spoken about the strike power there. So I think you might have your mix right in terms of goals. Which way it is around, that's up for debate.
I must say, it could swing either way. It depends how the strikers play out. But I'm going to go in favour of Oranje just because of the home advantage on this one. That's it.
Well, I quite like your call. I'm a little bit more bullish in Oranje's favour, and I do have a lot of Khim family, so they're probably not going to be loving me right now, especially my sister-in-law. But I think Oranje could. I think there's a lot for Oranje to prove. I think they're going to be at home. I think this Easter weekend and lack of preparation and travel for him is going to be difficult. And I think about the goals right, but I think we're going to see something like 4-1 Oranje. I really think, I have a hunch that this Oranje girls are going to bounce back really strongly this weekend. Grey College, Pulham?
Yeah, I'm saying Grey by 2. I think Grey have such a good set piece. They play such a structured game of hockey. Having the home advantage as well is going to be big. Having said that, Paul Gym is never an easy team to play against. So they're going to disrupt. They're going to push Grey. But if I had to make a call, I would say 3-1 Grey Bloem. That would be my call.
I think you probably are right. And again, I might lean a little bit more in favour of Grey, putting a few more over that. Just I think this particular travel is going to be particularly hard on the Kim school all round. And I think we'll see similar in the rugby and the netball as well. I think it's going to just coming out of Easter with people haven't been there, lack of preparation, a whole day of travelling.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be tough.
That makes a big difference because particularly on the girls' front, if they're going down 2 days early, they would have, coming out of
before.
We've had Monday was
Easter Monday.
Yeah.
So you've had Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you're off
into 2 games, and you're getting Unici. You forget as well. Those
Takes
girls
a lot of
are
you.
playing Unici on Thursday. That's not an easy game.
No.
Into Friday night.
Yeah.
Tough game, 2 tough ones. I mean, that's a tough weekend of hockey to get Unici and Oranje back to back. There's not a lot of teams who could pull that off at any level.
And Oranje also has this hum about it. The Astros very tight. It's got a big grandstand. It's got that aura and that atmosphere of big hockey. So that also plays into it when you're traveling. You've got to step up and come prepared. Tricky.
Absolutely. Well, look, we're just so excited about Friday Night Lights, and it's just been wonderful for us to have Hyundai on board to make this possible this year. So I know what I'm going to be doing on Friday night, watching it, and in fact on Thursday night as well. So, Bridge, just to confirm again, we have one game on Thursday night, which is
Oranje versus Paul Girls.
And on
Friday
night,
we go Oranje versus Paul Gym, Grey versus Paul Gym, and then another big one, Paul Filet versus Sax. And that's our 3 games.
We haven't spoken about. So, look, most of the roads lead to Bloemfontein this weekend. But we are going to see the very first of Sax coming through this year. Massively, number 1 last year. Lita Cry, arguably the best schoolboy player in the country right now. Come off an international tour.
Yes.
Where do you see this fixture going? Because Paul Filet have been a decent team this season. We've really seen some good results from them.
No, they have. And it's difficult to make a call not having seen Sax play. And Lita will still be with the national under-21
so
team.
He won't be playing.
He won't be playing. And say what you want is a factor. Speaking to one of the coaches who plays against Sax, it's a big game. I won't call it yet. But, he said to me, Lita's good for 2 goals a game. You've got to factor that in. So, Paul Filet will see this as their chance to have a go. And, it's going to be interesting to see what Pierre Leroux has done with the Sax team coming in. They haven't played a lot of local hockey.
It's the mystery team for us this season, and it's the mystery where we've got such high expectations. Yes. They're almost going to be easier for them to let us down than to exceed our expectations because our expectations are so high.
They're not even on a ranking front or anything because no one's seen them. So it's very exciting.
Bit of a mystery, so we'll be unveiling a little bit about this mystery team. But, I think I've certainly called it, and I think you've agreed. We do expect it to, come the end of the year, whatever rankings, if you believe in them or not, you would think that they're going to be right up there at the top.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think on that note, we should just be calling out that our under-21s have done just incredibly well. Both the men and women have qualified for the FIH World Cup later in December. The men are playing in India.
Correct.
The women are playing in Chile. I think to both squads of players, to both sets of coaching staff, management staff, and to Saha, congratulations. It's hard. You've got to play Egypt. Most of you probably would have seen that video doing the rounds. Egypt is a tricky customer from the boys' perspective. But both teams, playing in Namibia this last week and did really well.
No, I think, and people think it's an easy tournament to go to an African qualifier outside of South Africa. What the teams were met with there is a sand-dressed surface. We don't play on those in South Africa, so it would be the first outing on a sand-dressed Astro. Used to playing with kookaburras at international level. They were given another type of ball to play with.
Sure, there were no kookaburras there.
No kookaburras there on the sand-dressed turf. So some challenges leading into that, and touring. And this was a tournament already that was moved from last year to this year. So there was some disappointment last year. But for our teams to qualify, mission accomplished. That's what
absolutely
they went there to do.
Big tick box, and obviously for you guys at St Albans, you know, the coach is a St Albans head of hockey. It's just wonderful to have someone of that caliber within your system. But I'm sure a little bit extra special that it is one of your colleagues that's led us to that victory.
No, absolutely. You know, I think that Guy's done exceptionally well with that under-21 team. They actually had their camp at St Albans just before they went, and to see having been involved in an under-21 process with Gally before, it just seems like there's a little bit more resources now. You know, that they went there and they dominated that tournament, which is great.
You know, perhaps we close this segment. I think one of the reasons for that, again, is because of schools like St Albans who gave up their facilities and were able to help the development of hockey in this country. And we keep saying that the schools game really is the foundation of hockey in this country. And we're going to be talking a bit more about it after the break when we come back and talk about Hibbit Shield, the All-Girls Challenge, etc. coming up. As we get into the last part of our show, obviously throwing a little bit forward past the derby weekends, which are coming up this weekend, and our wonderful Monday, Friday night lights hockey. Some wonderful festivals coming on. I mean, obviously next week, the whole of South Africa, a bit messy, lots of public holidays. I think it's Monday and Thursday we've got public holidays. But the good part of public holidays and long weekends is we get some wonderful festival hockey.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think both in the boys and in the girls, there's some really wonderful stuff to look forward to. Maybe let's just start with the girls hockey starting next week. The new All-Girls Challenge, Bridget, it's new. I don't know too much about it. It's being hosted in Paarl. I know as a parent, probably my favorite place to tour. I think it's just an incredible place, just these amazing schools. Their hospitality is always outstanding.
Yes.
Pulham tent is still, the hospitality
the
tent there.
food must be good if
it's
you
really
like touring.
special at Pulham. Marius and them do a wonderful job, so I have no doubt we're going to see lots of that at this tournament. But tell me a little bit about this tournament. As I understand, under 14s, under 16s, under 19s, lots of girls' schools travelling to Pulham.
Yeah, so it's the first year that they're trying it out. Chris Gibson, who's well known in the hockey fraternity, he's started this concept. The whole idea is to get the best schoolgirls teams down to the Paarl area, play each other in a proper format hockey, so full game. It's 12-minute chuckers. So the first time we're seeing that, and it's tournament hockey. It's not festival hockey.
So there's going to be a winner.
So there's going to be a winner. There are trophies for the under 19, under 16, under 14 age group. So Saturday sees those final playoffs, those finals. But it's exciting because it's the first year that they're trying it out. It's got really good teams going down. In the under 19 age group, you've got the likes of Collegiate, Pearson, St Mary's Kloof, who won St Mary's, Waverley, St Mary's Waverley touring. You've got Pulham, who are playing down there, Oranje,
so a little bit of potentially another matchup a week later for those two teams.
Yeah.
Waterkloof, I think you mentioned earlier, are coming down. Another team that's been very impressive for us this year.
Yeah, Coach Marie from Waterkloof will be looking forward to that tour. They also had a really good start to the season, a really good St Stithians festival. So pretty much their third tour, which is going to be exciting.
What does make this special, which I think is something that we've seen in Founders and Coastal Cup and Nomads and things, is that there's under 14, under 16 and Opens all in town together. It does add something a little bit special to a tournament, doesn't it?
Kelvin, it's something that I've been trying to promote from a St Albans point of view and from schools that I've been involved in, is that the only way for under 14s to buy into what that end result is to watch the first teams play. Now at school they sort of see it, but it's so busy you don't get a chance to really sit down with your team, watch a game and talk about it. Now with these festivals and tournaments, under 14s are there, they can watch their team play, they can chat with their coaches, understand what they're looking forward to over their 5-year journey at school, and there's buy-in, into, because I think the success of school sport is that your whole club does well. And I think it's really interesting.
Absolutely.
I coach under 14 teams, so I understand the significance of
what that means. And obviously, I always love to look at school sport from the side of the parents. Having been one recently or relatively recently, if you're a parent of a girl, you potentially could get 5 years touring to Paarl for this tournament, which is Well, I mean, that's
Nice
almost
time of
that's as
year.
close to heaven as you get when
Yeah.
you're still alive. I mean, my good friend Richard Snell will be down there with the under-16 St Mary's girls. I hope all those wine farms are ready for him and some of those St Mary's parents. But I know that they're just looking forward to it's just a wonderful time for the families to go down, for just incredible hockey, and to see it happen right through the age groups is just very special.
And I think also nice that it's sort of the start of the season properly now. The year's been so disruptive that this now is really going to allow this tournament to be the pinnacle opportunity for these teams to stamp their authority going into derbies. We're seeing the derbies from this weekend, but now it's going to be derby time.
We often talk about it, and I know the three of us are not always convinced about these rankings that you see out there, just because the algorithms, we don't really, I'm not 100% sure that they work and that they all work equally in each of the provinces. But what is nice about this sort of festival, again, is once we get into derbies, it's pretty much Western Cape versus Western Cape, Eastern Cape versus Eastern Cape, KZN schools playing each other, Gauteng similarly, even in, maybe across Northerns and Gauteng. But we are still seeing a little bit, this is probably the last of the cross-border play for most of hockey this year. Yes, we've got top 12 girls coming at Oranje towards the end of the year, but from having a look at who those really good girls teams are, you're going to get a good sighter of here, because you've got to beat the teams from around the country to win this trophy.
Yeah, I mean, the format is in such a way that you take your points. So win is your 3, draw, 1 loss. So it's
as you go through the tournament.
As you're going through. So quite nice that I think they're playing it in such a way that they've got the pools, and then, you play your cross pools eventually. So you are going to play potentially teams that but equally you're going to play teams that you don't know at all.
Which is always so good, isn't it? It's so good for coaches and players to play against people that they don't know. And maybe even more importantly, an under 14 age group where they've never seen some of these kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think, again, the point I was going to make earlier was that many schools don't have a dedicated prep school that the kids come from.
Yes.
So what you're finding at under 14 is you're putting together groups of kids from different prep schools coming into a new school. And what these tournaments do is that they allow, these teams to gel and to see what the rest of their school hockey career looks like, which is fantastic for under 14s.
It is. It's very, very special, isn't it?
It's exciting.
Too early to call a winner. Is there someone that you like the look of in that tournament? I mean, look, our sort of favourite to date, we've spoken about Renish.
Yeah.
Well, our favourite. I know your favourite is firmly DSG out of Kloof, St Mary's out of Kloof. So,
I think it's too early to call. I think St Mary's Kloof will have a nice run if they take their win from St Mary's Waverley across with them.
But they are going in with a target on the back,
exactly.
aren't they?
That's the other thing with it. You're not getting Renish playing there. I think they're just coming off touring overseas. DSG aren't there. So there are some teams missing as such, but I'm gonna again probably put my neck out of it here, but I'm gonna throw it to Pulham. I think home tournament, home environment.
Well, I like that call. I think they're gonna have a tough week this week. I think, and they're gonna be coming out next week at home and saying, okay,
firing.
Oranje, you got the better of us in Bloemfontein, but welcome to Paul.
Yeah.
And I think you could certainly see a bit of that.
I think you'll see more of the consistent teams coming through now. St Mary's is one thing. The 25 minutes one way. Completely different.
Are you saying to Bridget you thought they were a bit lucky?
Yeah.
Exactly
I'm waiting for the rest of it, yes.
No, I think that now playing 4 12-minute chuckers, now we're going to see good second-half teams who can close out that last chucker.
I agree.
The Oranje teams with a lot more structure and not breaking so fast. Absolutely.
So I think, and that's why I think Paul Jim is a good call, because they've been solid.
That's our call. We've made it. One of our absolute favourite tournaments of the year, the Standard Hibbit Shield, one of the really classic tournaments in schoolboy hockey in this country. Next week starting, you'll be going down yourself, Kristen. We'll be hearing from you. You're obviously there in your official capacity from a St Albans perspective, but you'll always have your hockey on 216 hat on down there. Tell us a little bit more about the Standard Hibbit Shield and some of the teams, because there's a serious lineup of teams playing at the
serious lineup and teams we've spoken about a lot. Paul Russ, Sachs are going to be there. Grey College, Grey High School. There's nowhere to hide at Bishops.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just looking from the KZN side. Maritzburg College and DHS turning out to be probably the two sort of form teams in KZN. Maritzburg College, I think, might be making if not their first period, they certainly haven't been at the Hibbit Shield for some time, as far as I can.
I'm not too clued
recall.
up on the history of the Hibbit Shield, but my understanding is always that it's one of the very few tournament-based schoolboy. At schoolboy level.
Again, so we're playing for a trophy again,
Yes.
and the first trophy of the year. So
And
absolutely.
also under 16 and under 14,
Yes.
which is exciting.
Just again,
game.
I mean, that's just so good for hockey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, again, you know, to have that many schools attending a tournament in PE, you know, I think that we've spoken a little bit about South African schools hockey and the fantastic state that it's in at the moment in terms of the player base, and you know, another opportunity for boys now to go and play at tournament level. And again, it's something that's going to serve them well. We've just spoken about the under 21s and how that that plays out. That tournament hockey is important.
Absolutely. I mean, it gets down to that point. You've got to win the game to get through to the next level.
Yeah.
Or, you draw the game. Now you're going into 8-seconders and all sort of things. Just those pressures that perhaps the derby weekends, where you can walk away with that honourable draw. You're not going to do that in this sort of tournament structure once you get down to the hard end of it.
And those pools are tough.
Yes.
Each game you're playing is going to be
have you got a pool of death that you
I think
like to
I think Pool A is going to be a tough one.
Pool
You've got
A?
Sachs and Albans.
Yes.
Is that Grey College in there?
Grey College is in there, and Pearson are in Pool A. So
it's
three really
tough one, but
I think-
largely there's a lot of very tough pools there.
Pool C, I mean, you've got Grey High School, Paul, Jim, St. Stithians, Westville.
Oh, I think that for me is probably my pool of death. I think we haven't spoken enough about Grey High because we haven't seen them at too many things, but they've certainly been a very good team this season and
Great result against Paul Roos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was a massive result against Paul Roos, and I think is that Paul Roos's last game. So again, Michael Baker's going to be coming for a little bit of revenge down in Port Elizabeth after that draw, which he would definitely have been disappointed in, having, I think, led on 3 or 4 occasions.
Yes.
What was it,
Yeah.
4 all in the end?
Yes.
3 all?
4 all.
They led pretty much 4 times through the game, so they'll certainly be coming back. And another team that we really liked from this past weekend in St. Stithians and Michael de Grassa and Aidan Blatch and that team. First time we're going to see them amongst some of these because we didn't really see them.
And they're really going to get tested against schools like Grey High School.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the beauty again of these tournaments. And we touched on a little bit about the rankings. For me, the only true way of doing it was
old school way.
Yeah. Everybody played everybody. And I think if you actually had to sit down and look at it over the season, you'd get a more accurate reflection. So some of these teams are ranked in the top 10, but they haven't played each other yet.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
The top 10 schools haven't played each other, and so that's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think on the ranking side, we were discussing it off air because there's been a few movements in some of the rankings that we see around. In boys hockey, they have some impact later on in the year because there are certain tournaments that lean on them. Certainly in the girls hockey, it really matters because Orania use the SA school sport rankings, I think, to determine which 12 schools or which 11 schools get invited because they always invite themselves. So it's actually not the top 12.
Fortunately, they always are in the top 12, so they've got that.
So far, they absolutely have. So in that respect, they do matter a little bit.
Yeah, I think in the girls' space, I mean, it plays even into the under 16s. They rank down to the under 16s because Pulham hosts the under 16 top 12.
Yes,
and then there's an under 14 top 12. So in the girls' space, it is quite prevalent.
It's important in August.
Yes,
and also because most of the girls' schools play till August, we get big pockets of the boys' schools who don't pay past July. And obviously that really messes with that type of system later in the year. So again, why a tournament like the Standard Hibbit Shield is so important because it's one of those few where everyone's thrown in. There's a winner of the tournament. You get to match yourself up against the best schools from around the country and play for something. So it's actually a really, really important tournament in terms of playing for something in the hockey season.
If I'm not mistaken, I think when was it last year when Sachs had their really good team? It might even have been the year before. But Paul Roos managed to beat them at Hibbit Shield. And
I think
then
it was last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
And then Sachs came back in the league fixture and I think put 5 or 6 past Paul Roos. So it's interesting. Tournament hockey is, and that's why I think at under 18 level there needs to be a little bit more of this because it really does test your resolve as a team.
Absolutely. And what it will say, I mean, some serious coaches. We're going to see little bit of not quite shenanigans, but you're going to see them looking to outplay each other as you know, to move those chess pieces around the AstroTurf. So just such an exciting week to look forward to from schools tournament hockey perspective. It's been another wonderful show chatting to both of you. Really, you know, as always, I love it for those hockey nerds of us out there who just love to talk about this wonderful game. Again, in closing, just a wonderful win for both our under-21 teams, or not a win, but a qualification. They may still go on to win. We don't know that as we shooting the show right now. I'm sure they both will win those tournaments, but they've done enough to qualify for their respective FIH World Cups later in the year, which is so wonderful for South African hockey that we'll be having a boys and a girls under-21 team participating. Bridget, thank you so much. Good luck for all the work that you've got to do from a production perspective. Kristen, as always, wonderful to have you, and thanks for coming through from Pretoria. Have a wonderful Hibbit Shield. Behave yourself in Port Elizabeth. I know that's sort of getting close to the home hunting ground there for you. So I know you've got a lot of old mates and family and friends and everyone else there. Really enjoy yourself. We wish we could be with you. And that's all we have time for tonight on another wonderful episode of Hockey on 216, proudly driven by Hyundai.